Hey guys, all right, it's January 11th here in Kentucky. We got our second large snowfall for the year, and I'm out here pulling cameras for good until the summer anyway, and doing a little postseason scouting, but I'm not penetrating deep into the bedding areas. When I first got here, I flew the drone and zipped around the farm and saw a lot of deer that were bedded. I found one small buck in his bed, and when I pulled the cards from two of the cameras up on the far east end of the property, up until this morning, two of the large bucks, buck I call Thick 11 and the Perfect 8, both are sporting both sides of the rack as of 10:30 this morning. There's a deer called Funky, and I recognize him. Finally showed up yesterday, and he's been MIA since December 18th, and I know he's dropped both sides of his rack. Big, broad shoulders, big space between his eyes, just an old gray face, and it's him. It's 100% him. And besides recognizing specific deer, bucks, when you look at your trail cams and you see other deer sporting both sides of the rack, you know for sure whether it's the deer that you're after. So I'm looking forward to finding his sheds. But I want to talk about shed hunting tips. So the first tip I want to mention today is the most important. And you want to start looking when you know the bucks have shed. Okay, and two really effective ways to help you determine whether the bucks have dropped their antlers is observation in either person while watching ag fields or food plots from a distance, or checking cameras. So on this property, I have a couple of food plots that are viable and a couple that didn't make it last year. But on the food plots that are doing really well, I have a couple of cameras on those food plots, and that's where I'm getting all the deer activity. And I've also put some corn out to help sweeten the deal. So on the far end of the property, I have turnips, radishes, clover, corn, and then a protein block. So that's really concentrating all the deer on the east end, and I'm able to watch and monitor those deer and wait for them to drop. So I did find one antler shed December 30th. It's a 2.5-year-old 9-point. He dropped his left side between the 23rd and the 25th, and then dropped his right side a few days later. So that was pretty exciting, but not expected, especially in states like Kentucky where the winters are pretty mild, to find them in December. You might find 10-15% have dropped in December in this part of the country. The further north you go, you have a better chance of finding them starting mid-December, even after the rigors of the rut. And if a particular buck is injured or really worn down, he might drop early. But about 50 to 70% will drop in mid-January through the end of February. That's been my experience. And then the last 10, 15, 20% maybe will drop in March. So keep that in mind. Next tip, you want to walk very slow. So number one, you want to wait until they drop, and wait until the majority have dropped before going in. Otherwise, you're going to bump deer off your property. Number two, go slow. And by slow, I mean, if you think you're going slow, slow down even further, okay, even more. Your neck should be sore after shed hunting, because you should be looking down in front of you and off to the side, 5-10 yards off to the side, no more. Preferably 5 yards off to the side. If you look further than that, you will find the easy ones on occasion, especially in short grassy fields that have been compacted by the snow. You might find a 65, 70, 75-inch antler out in the open with tines up, and that has happened to me a few times in my life. But for the most part, what you're looking for is the curve of an antler beam or the tip of a tine, and the only way they're going to find that is if your eyes and your neck are glued to the ground, looking straight down, and very short distance out in front of you. As predators, and just like the coyote, okay, our eyes are in the front of our head, and we're looking and we're scanning off in the horizon. We're looking for the flicker of an ear or tail, or the movement of a deer's body as it walks through the brush. And so we're looking out in the distance. Now, when you're shed hunting, you're looking for a stationary object that's not moving, and it's on the ground, and it's a stick. It looks like a stick among an ocean of sticks. So it's not going to be moving, and looking way off in the distance is not going to serve you. So you want to look right in front of you and go very slow. Another tip is if you have access to rent or own a drone, that can be very helpful. So yesterday I was on a property And before I decided to drive into the middle of the property and pull some cards from some cameras overlooking a soybean and a clover plot, I decided to fly the drone over the plot first, and I saw 4 does in the plot and 2 off to the side. So I decided not to go in there, and that was a good idea. Likewise, on this farm today, after the snow we got, another 4 or 5 inches last night, I decided to zip the drone around within about 300-400 yards, a radius around the food plot on the east end. And as you can see in some of these drone clips here, I came across several deer that were luckily in their bed. So it's about 11:35 right now. I got to the farm at about 10:45, and the deer were already nestled in their beds. So I knew the coast was clear, and I drove up the rest of the way. So if you have access to a drone, consider using that. Another tip, of course, you want to go on overcast days. Do not go on days like today. Now, it's a little bit on the overcast side, but the sun's starting to poke out now. And with the sun, it's like looking into a reflective mirror. I mean, with the sun shining right in your face, you don't want to be doing that. If you have to go on days because your free time is limited, and it happens to be sunny on the day that you have the chance to go, keep the sun at your back. If you're walking in the sun, the amount of sharp edges and shadows and bright reflection off the ground, especially if there's snow on the ground, is going to help you miss a lot of antlers. So you want to walk with the sun at your back, but ideally you want to pick those overcast days. All right, another tip is focus your attention on heavy deer bedding areas and heavily used trails. This time of the year, the deer are herded back up. Does are in groups and bucks are in bastard groups, and so there's a high concentration of activity in a smaller area. Another tip is focus on areas where deer can jar their head left to right, up and down when they're crossing under over fences, down, up and down steep ditches, and across creeks. When they land and they jar their head, that's a good chance that they'll be dropping their antlers when they cross those places. So focus your attention on those spots, and it'll help you as well. Another tip, definitely bring binoculars. A lot of times I've found sheds 50 to 75 yards or further, even in some cases, off in a distance, and you want to eliminate the possibility of what you think is a shed to be a golf ball or a pile of trash. So something off in the distance that's a couple hundred yards away off in a combine cornfield can be easily scanned with a pair of binoculars. Or on the south-facing slopes where deer bed, that's another good place to find sheds. But if you're scanning along, there's places that you can cover rather quickly that are low percentage places to find deer, like north-facing slopes or very wide open areas that you'd be best suited to cover really quickly but thoroughly with a pair of binoculars, and they'll save you a lot of extra footwork and make your time in the woods more efficient. One time I found a shed. It was 423 paces from a fence line off across a valley, and the sun was shining directly and just perfectly on this half of a 10-point shed. I ended up harvesting that buck the following year, which is a pretty cool story. But I found that shed and I couldn't believe my eyes. I confirmed what I thought was an antler with the binoculars, and in that case I ran across that field so fast your head would spin. But a lot of times you'll see what you think is an antler way off in the distance, and you get over there and it's a branch that looks like an antler, or it's a piece of garbage. So definitely bring a pair of binoculars. You'll save yourself a lot of useless walking around and wasted energy. But yeah, definitely don't get discouraged. It's very tough to find sheds, even in areas where the ground is void of vegetation, and even a brightly colored antler can be hidden very easily with brush and not much. So there's one other story I have. I was in Iowa once again. I was walking along a creek, and there was about 2.5–3 inches of snow on the ground. And I'm walking along the creek, and you can see where the antler was laying, and I had my set of tracks running parallel, one on about 3 to 5 yards off to the one side, and the second set of tracks running parallel to my first was about 5 to 10 yards on the other side of the shed. And as I walked the third time along that creek, in the middle between those two previous trails that I walked within probably 5 or 6 feet of that shed before I found it. So it's very easy to Miss antlers, again, they are not an animal that's moving. They're a stationary object in an ocean of sticks. It looks like another stick. So don't get discouraged. Go often. Take your time. Go slow. Focus on the ground. Focus on those fence crossings, those bedding areas, heavy trails, and the trails connecting bed to feed. And you'll be better off. And just have fun. Get out there, get some exercise. And it's a great way to pass the winter months and get rid of some of the winter blues, get some exercise, and find some of that white gold